Good afternoon, you guys. This is Miss Johnson, and I'm going to be giving you a quick tutorial on how to create your project number 5, the pup portrait. So to begin with, your very first step is going to be to decide whether or not you want to do a photo of someone. You can pull a photo from the internet, a popular person, a favorite artist, favorite actor, something like that. You can do a family member. Whichever you choose, you're going to want to take your photo and make sure that you crop it so that it's just the person's face and upper body. And you're going to want to make sure that it's in profile view. Now, my daughter's here is not exactly profile. It's kind of in between 3/4 and profile, but I liked the view of this, so I went ahead and chose to do this. And all I did was just put it on a Word document and enlarged it to fit how big I would think I would want it to be on just a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And then I just printed it out, and I'll tell you what I did with the outlining in just a second. The other option is that you can draw your own, and I've included a tutorial. I'll put that in there, but you can draw your own person. It doesn't have to be a female. Mine just happens to be because I was doing the tutorial. And then just make sure that you leave yourself space to include a thought bubble, and make sure that you incorporate the top of the shoulders and the profile view of the face. So that's going to be step 1. Okay. Step 2 is going to be if you choose to do the drawing, you don't have to do this right away. You can kind of skip this next part. But if you choose to do a photo, once you print it out, you're going to want to make sure that you go over with a Sharpie or some black marker, something that's going to really show up. And you're going to want to just kind of really, you don't want to add in a whole bunch of detail, but you want to kind of just create the outline. And you can see that's what I've done here on my photo of the face, and then clothes and shoulders and that kind of thing. So that what you're going to then do is, because you don't want to create your artwork on this piece of paper, so then what you're going to do, and I'll show you how to do this, is you're going to take your plain sheet of paper that you're going to create your piece of art on. First of all, make sure that you've created a border, and I haven't done that yet, but you're going to want to make sure you have your 1/2 inch border around the edge. And then you're going to take this, and if you have a light board, which I have one, but I'm not going to use it because I know most of you probably don't have access to a light board. But if you do have one, then it's really easy. You can just lay it on your light board and trace. If you don't have a light board, you can take these 2 pieces, and what you'll do is you'll just take some tape and tape it to a window that gets lots of good light, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second, and you can trace it really easily. So give me a second and we'll do that. Okay, now you can see here, and let's see if I can adjust this a little bit. You can see here that I have my picture over taped to my window, and because of the light coming through the back, you can clearly see the lines of the picture. And so what you're going to want to do is just with a pencil, you don't want to do this with Sharpie. You just want to outline, just lightly create the outline that you drew. Okay. So once again, I'm not going to go through the entire process, but you can see what is happening as far as being able to see the lines and trace the lines. Okay, so that would be necessary for the next step. Okay, so now you can see after I have traced it and I've gotten the basic lines, I can go back in and kind of smooth things out, because you can see I was just trying to get the basic lines there. So we're going to want to make sure that she has an actual nose and that things are lined up the way they need to be, and you can just kind of smooth out the lines as you go. And you can see I forgot a line here, so I'll just add that in. Okay, so you now you can either do your own drawing, or you can do a photograph and trace, okay? And so now you're ready to start adding the dark lines. So what you want to do is you want to, one of the criteria that you have to include that Roy Lichtenstein always used was to create really strong dark lines. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, whichever you're going to do, and I'm going to do my daughter, so I'm going to outline this drawing. So what you're going to want to do is create, and you're just going to take a Sharpie and outline your pencil with some really strong lines, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll go through the process of that, and then I'll come back whenever that is finished. Okay, so now you can see that I've finished outlining, and I'm now ready to start adding in some color. So a couple of things you need to remember. Number one is that you have for the Lichtenstein, one of the things that he was very famous for is using only the color triad, which is the three primary colors, blue, yellow, and red, plus black and white. So we're going to choose kind of where we want to incorporate these three colors, and we also have to select where we want to use. Sorry about that. I was trying to figure out what is going on with the focus. So we want to figure out where we want to incorporate solid fill and where we want to incorporate the Ben-Day dot process. So use of dots and the use of solid fill. So you have to make those decisions. So for example, you might fill in her skin with a solid, with the dots, which he did a lot. That was one of his characteristics. He used the dots on the skin tones, and then use a solid for the clothing and like the hair. You can do dots in the background. You could do dots to fill in a different color dot of the thought bubble, or you could do a solid. So you have to make those decisions, and you want to keep in mind balance of color. So we want to make sure that we're getting an even distribution of colors. Now he used a lot of times he would use like yellow for the hair. For some reason he always liked to use blondes. He always chose blondes. You don't have to do that. You can change that up however you'd like, but just make sure that you kind of evenly use the three different colors. Okay, so that's going to be your next choice. So I'm going to go ahead and decide. I think I want to do a solid color on the hair and a solid color on the clothing, and then the rest I'm going to kind of fill in with some different dot colors. So I'm going to go ahead and get started working on filling in the hair. I'm going to do yellow for the hair, and I'm going to do a blue for her top, and then I'm going to do red dots to fill in for her face and her skin, and then I think I'm going to do probably either a blue background. I think I'll do a blue dots in the background, and then a solid red background for the thought bubble. That's my thought. I may change that up, but I'm going to get started on that, and then I will be back. Okay, so I wanted to show you, before I get started on the hair, I wanted to show you that I went ahead and just filled in like the little lip lines, her earring, and her eye. And now I'm going to get started on her hair. And remember that I said I was going to do a solid, so I just want to kind of give you an idea of how you need to fill that in. It's always a good idea when you're shading to make sure that you go with the flow of the hair. Okay, so we wouldn't want to shade this way, right? Up and down, don't want to do that. We want to go with the flow of the hair. So over here, it doesn't really matter as much, but you want to make sure that, especially when you are and right here, I just realized that it looks like it's picking up some of my black, so I may need to change my marker because I don't really want green hair. In the little areas, it's not as important which direction, but when you start getting into big strokes, it's really important which direction you're going, because you can see the marks that it makes. And I think I'm going to have to switch my marker because I don't want black all in it. Or maybe I'll just let it dry a little bit longer, and we'll come back. Okay, so now you can see I have gone in and filled in my solids. And so now what I'm going to start working on is filling in the dots. And now I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm going to put solid or dots into I think I may do I may just leave it white. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided. But for your thought bubble, think of something fun and creative to put into your thought bubble. My daughter actually came up with this so that it would be her. So I thought that was really fun. I said, hey, let's go with it. But once you have gotten your solids filled in, then you're going to go back and start doing your dots. Okay, and that was a very, very important part of his style. And I have got to run grab my ruler. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my ruler. For this part, you're going to want to practice. Don't just jump in and start making dots on your piece. And I would actually recommend that you do dots in pencils just to make sure that you are getting the right spacing and that sort of thing. Now remember that the closer the dots are together, the more intense your color is going to be. So if you want to make it a lighter color, like for her skin tone, you're going to want to space them out a little bit. And you'll notice that one thing on his, on Lichtenstein's, is that his is kind of in an alternating pattern. So we're going to try to imitate that. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to line up your ruler at the edge of the paper. As you can see over here, I've got it lined up at the edge of my paper. And you just want to go, and you can kind of decide how far apart you want them to be. I'm going to do and I've got mine on the centimeters. You can also do it on the inches if you'd like, whichever way. I think I will do the inches just because we're in America. All right, so I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to go every half an inch. No, every quarter of an inch. That might be good. And I'm just going to put a dot. And you want to do it like this so that it's nice and even and evenly spaced, because remember that if you get them closer together in some spots, then it's going to look darker. If you get them further away, it's going to look lighter. So I'm going to just kind of do some dots like that. Then I'm going to move down, and I want to move down about the same distance that I have them, the distance that they are apart. That's how much space I want to put in between them. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. And like I said, you'll want to play around with this and just make sure that you're getting them pretty even. They don't have to be exactly even, but you want them to be pretty even, okay? Now you can see I've created kind of like little rectangles or little squares. And so now what you can do is come back in between those and put dots to create that alternating. So I'm going to line up my ruler so that that quarter inch mark is halfway in between the other two dots, okay? And then I'm just going to come in there and put my dots in again. And hopefully that's going to be where they're evenly spaced. Okay, so I'm not going to do all of them, but you get the idea. So now what you would do is you would go back in with your color, and if you don't have a really fine tip marker, you might want to do a pen, especially like if you're going to do blue, or if you have a red pen, you could just do a pen so that you get a really fine dot. But I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to do, and mine's actually a little bit too fine because I get, it kind of spreads out when I dot it. But you'll see, then you can go back in really easily and add in that color. Okay. And we'll see what it turns out like. And I'm just going to continue without the pencil dots there. So I'm creating shading without completely filling in, all right? And it's nice and even. It looks like a 5 on a dice. So think about creating like that, okay? Now remember that you could do bigger dots if you wanted to. Like for example, if you had a Sharpie or let's see, I've got a highlighter here. I'll try using the highlighter instead. So if you wanted a bigger dot, you could definitely do a bigger dot. Okay, and you see that's going to give you more color. So it's going to create a different feel, because you're going to have more color on the page, and hopefully you can see those. So it's up to you, depending on, you know, what size dot you want to do and what color you want to put where. But you want to make sure that you use a ruler so that you get them nice and even. You want to make sure that the dots are not kind of all over the place. We want it to be nice and even, okay? So now now that I've practiced a little bit, and you may want to practice even more, especially if you see that it doesn't really look too good, you may want to go back and practice it again. Now that I've practiced, I'm going to go in and start adding in my color for her skin. And I'm going to start down on her arms, and I'm just going to go in and start with my ruler. Oh, let's line it up at the edge, Miss Johnson. Okay. And you want to make sure it's nice and lined up, and I think I may have some other paper. No, that looks good. So that you get them nice and straight. Okay, so I'm going to go in with my pencil, and I'm just going to start giving myself some dots. And I'm just going every 1/4 inch so that they're evenly spaced. And now remember, you're only doing the skin, so we don't want to go into the blue. We just want to do the skin. Okay, so I've got those. Now I'm going to scoot up. And it's always key, make sure that your ruler edge is lined up nice and even over there so that you get it as straight as you can. Because if you don't, you're going to get it crooked. And actually, I think I'm going to space these out a little bit. So I'm going to go in between on this one. And hopefully I'll be able to see, because it looks like, oh goodness, my glasses aren't working too well. It looks like there's clay in there. Okay. Okay. And now halfway in between is going to be there, 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 and there. Okay, now I'm going to scoot it up again. Make sure that I'm lined up. And I'm going to start at my first line and do the same every 1/4 inch. Now, you don't have to do the pencil dots. I just like to do the pencil dots because it helps me. If I make a mistake, I can go back and correct it before I actually get the color on there. Okay, and now I'm going to scoot it up again, about the same distance, and I'm going to go in between those. That one is really difficult to see there. Okay. Now I'm going to keep doing this until I have all of it finished, and then I'll come back and we will continue. Okay, so now you should be able to see the dots on the skin, and you should be able to see it kind of gives an illusion of kind of a peachy tone, which is the skin color. Now I could go back in and add some more dots in the middle in between these if I wanted to. I could go in and make those a little fatter if I wanted to, which I may do, because I'm thinking I may like them to be a little bit thicker. Totally up to you. The next step is going to be to go in and add the dots to the background, and I'm thinking I'm going to use a quite a bit bigger dot on the background. And I'm just going to put those in blue. So that's going to be what I'm going to be working on next. Okay, so as you can see now, I have completed the red dots, and I went ahead and added in. I just decided instead of doing solid, I wanted to just do yellow. So I just added in some yellow dots to create that. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do in the background, and that's totally up to you. Just whenever on yours, obviously. Be creative. You might look at some of Roy Lichtenstein's work and come up with some ideas about what you want to put in your background. And I'm going to add some finishing touches, but that's the general idea. Once you are finished, you can go back and delete any pencil marks that you see. Like I see a couple around. But that's the main idea, getting the solid color and then your dots. And then once you have that in place, then you can kind of play with the background. And I would say, always doodle, get some ideas first and come up with what you want to do before you actually start working on your artwork, because these dots take a long time and you don't want to mess up your artwork and have to start over for sure. Hope that's helpful, and I will be posting my finished work on Artsonia.